Thank you very much for coming today. This is, April, the April meetup. The March meetup was canceled because of snow. And it has been brought to my attention that like my group would like a little bit diversity and not like just talk about pure finance and also have like different kinds of groups of people to do talks on different kind of subjects. Just added to diversity a little bit, not just about retirement, not just about numbers and all that stuff. So I was thinking in my head, like, who should I be able to bring in like short notice and also be proud of what they've accomplished so far. And the only person I can think in my head is Gina. Gina and I have been friends for quite a few years. I've seen them grow on Instagram and on Facebook, and I really appreciate the growth going from like a different part of financial journey to like where they are currently. And I think that, and today's topic is about not purely about numbers. I think it's a little bit more about fitness and more about like than numbers. And and the number is more of just a tool to kind of drive that lifestyle. Like basically have a lifestyle that you want and to have the numbers support that. So in the past, I did a lot of talks about like budgetings, but what's the point of having a bunch of money when there's nowhere to use it or where you don't know how to use it, right? During COVID, I come to that realization a little bit myself. I was just like saving. I was very good at running meetups, but I wasn't very good at knowing what my lifestyle is. So Gina helps a little bit of that through osmosis, seeing how she does her life. I make friends and see how they want to change their life. So a lot of respect for what she has done so far, and I won't do a lot more introduction, and I'm going to let her do the introduction herself.
My name is Gina. I am your young, whitish diversity this morning. I'm going to be here to talk to you about nutrition today and overall health and fitness. So thank you very much for joining me. I'll give you guys just a brief introduction about me in my life. So who am I? I am a personal trainer, nutrition specialist, strength and conditioning coach. I also work with bodybuilders and current prenatal and postpartum women as well. I also have my master's degree in exercise physiology. That's kind of where everything started for me because my bachelor's actually happens to be in languages, which is not related at all. So my life has taken a 90-degree turn. Historically, in the last 7 to 8 years, I've competed in amateur CrossFit and bodybuilding competitions, and occasionally I drag my husband out to do turkey trots and other 10Ks that he miserably runs through with me. It's good quality time. I was in the Marine Corps for 9 years, just got out. So I am staying at home and doing personal training with our two hooligans whom you see over here on the right. They are our beloveds. But ideally and in totality, I work to help and teach people discover their healthiest life. And I know it sounds a little cliche or maybe like a little bit of an elevator speech, but there is a bigger picture to it that I will talk about, and I'll try to encompass our FIRE movement into that as well, and kind of how we navigate that ourselves. And then I'm just a wife seeking FIRE with my husband since 2014, where we started our journey. It's actually kind of around the time that we met, but we eventually got married shortly thereafter and found Dave Ramsey and did his class. And from there, we paid off all of our consumer debt and kind of had different ideas about how we wanted to go about life from there. We had about $55,000 in debt, and that was amongst 2 cars and my really poor spending habits. And so I had lots of credit card debt stacked up. But eventually we worked our butts off and saved, and then we started saving towards our retirement. And that's kind of where we stalled out because we were about to change duty stations and come here to Fort Meade, and we kind of disagreed on how to live here. And what I mean by that is, do we want to do the Dave Ramsey style and rent out and save until we can pay for a home? Or as my husband found the FIRE community, do we want to actually purchase a home wisely and within 25% of our monthly income and actually kind of like build interest on that and make it an investment for us, essentially. So that's when he kind of introduced me to the fire community. I resisted for a little while. And as I came to understand more and he came to describe more of it to me, I kind of opened up to that a little bit. And so here we are. We eventually came to this area in 2018. And shortly thereafter, we had our first child, Miles, who will be 4 this month. And then from there, we just kind of started hacking away at our mortgage and just really starting to save. As you know, because we were both in the Marine Corps, we had the option to invest in our TSPs. And so that really benefited us for a really long time. And so we're kind of on that path now. We're both out of the military now, and so, you know, being in this area and having access and having our experience that we do has allowed my husband to continue working as a government contractor. And so that has allowed us to continue building up our income and savings. And so we save 30 to 40-ish percent of our income right now. And we try to have a harmony, I would call it, because I don't really believe in balance in life, but I would say we harmonize trying to really enjoy life on top of being able to save so that he can eventually either go part-time or come out of the workforce or maybe even work from home if that's something that he decides to do. But this path for us has allowed me to be able to get out of the military and stay at home with our kids and actually pursue what I want to pursue. And for me, that has been health and nutrition. And my journey there started when I was about 25, when I realized that my college diet of macaroni and cheese bowls, you guys, you know those, right? Ramen noodle, vodka, and plenty of beer was not really working out for my midsection. And it didn't matter how often I went to the gym, how many hot yoga classes I went to, it never seemed to go away, and I never seemed to feel better, and I never seemed to be able to stop eating all the things that were in front of me, which resulted in spending lots of money on food and just always feeling like crap about it. So as I got into the military, I kind of realized, there were people around me. The military is really big on your fitness, and they want to make sure that you're in shape, that you can carry a person 100 yards, And so it really started to dawn on me that if I continued down this path, that it was not going to serve me long-term. And so I started asking people, watching YouTube videos, and just, looking around in the gym, seeing who looks like they know stuff and I might be able to approach them without being harshly judged or laughed at. So that journey with some friends really started, and I started to explore things like CrossFit and started to really think about the things that I was putting into my body. And so that has developed to where I am today, which I'll get into in a little bit. This is what our home looks like on a normal day. So if you are a parent, then you can kind of relate. I wanted to put something funny in there. So this is Miles getting beat by Matthew in Jenga. This is actually from a recent RV trip that we took in Florida. We're actually thinking about RVing for full-time next year in 2023. And so we were experimenting here. And this is our daughter, Jocelyn. She just turned 1, and she's a handful already. She's not quite walking yet, but she'll be there soon. She actually broke her leg or fractured her leg the week before her first birthday. So that has set her back a little bit, but it has not slowed her down one bit. So we are enjoying life with them, but nonetheless, it's a roller coaster ride. So I'm going to start with some big topics because this is something that, within the Choose FI podcast and even amongst the Choose FI Facebook group, if you're a part of that, since the beginning, when we started within the fire community, I hear how much money you're spending on groceries, how much money you're spending on groceries. And when we had a lower income, yes, that conversation was extraordinarily relevant. But my feelings and thought process on that has grown over the years. So I understand that everyone has a budget and there's only so much that a family or a person can spend on their groceries. And so when I talk about these things, please take that into your personal relative consideration. And just for a disclaimer that I should have said early on, I am not a doctor. I'm not your physician. Okay, so anything I say today, please take up with your professional medical provider. And so back on topic, eventually when I started realizing that we started to have a better income and that we could support an even healthier and cleaner lifestyle, I really started to explore that and have that conversation with my husband. And is that lifestyle expensive? Yes, it is. And that's a conversation that I'm not necessarily going to go down today. I'm going to kind of skirt it a little bit so that you can kind of have an understanding. But that, in my personal opinion, has a little bit to do with our country, our society, and our government as to why that's so expensive. But what we do know is that according to the NIH, which is the National Institute of Health, the poor American diet drives about $50 billion per year into healthcare costs. Now, a lot of us are here because we really want to focus on retiring early, whatever that looks like to you, or at least being financially autonomous. And that might mean you're sitting on a beach drinking pina coladas, or that might mean that we get to go RVing full-time with our kids around the country. And so that can look very different. But if you're not healthy and if your body is not feeling good, how are you actually supposed to be able to enjoy those times? If you're spending your time, which is a resource that we don't get back, in and out of doctor's appointments, in and out of hospitals for things that you can control, then you're not really being able to enjoy your independence and autonomy as much as you actually truly could. And so that is where I come in to try to teach the importance of overall health and nutrition. So unfortunately, we see that whole foods now cost more, but they tend to have a better ROI. So what I mean by that is that the nutrition, the basic micronutrients that feed into a macronutrient, which we know is protein, carbs, and fats, do better for our body. And in some ways, this is an older way of looking at health and nutrition. Like, we've had a lot of diets that have come up over the years, like paleo and Atkins and the Whole30 and things like that, that many of us have tried. And to a point, they do really great, but a lot of them aren't long-term and a lot of them aren't sustainable. And so I'll talk a little bit more about how to get to that sustainability and that long-term and making it into a lifestyle instead of something you just do for 30 days. So we also see that diets high in processed and fast foods can be cheaper now. Yes, you can save some time and you can run through McDonald's or Chick-fil-A, which I'm guilty of. I just want to be very clear of. We love Chick-fil-A in my house. I love Cava. Chipotle is awesome, although my husband and I disagree on that. And I'll talk more about that later, how you can kind of go to those places, save your time, and look into healthier options for yourself. But overall, when I work with my clients, what I talk about is like the 80-20 rule. 80% of the time we're getting in whole foods as fresh as possible. If some of it's frozen, like not the end of the world. I'm not going to sit here and pick apart, like if you don't cook them correctly, you're losing some of the micronutrients. That's too nitty-gritty to me. What I want to do is I want to help people start to make new habits that are going to lead them to feeling better and feeling more confident about where they are in their lives. And so what we see with these kinds of diets, which is the general American diet, is they tend to lead to more medical expenses and time use in the future. And time is extraordinarily important, again, because we don't get our time and energy back. And I have learned that becoming a parent 4 years ago has taught me that you don't get your energy back. And you certainly don't get your time back. So the best time to take control of your health was 10 years ago, but the next best time is today. So I know it's kind of, again, cliche, but it can be done. So I'm going to talk about some health hacks. These pictures here on the right are actually our home gym here. This was actually built before COVID. We did not know that COVID was happening. It was about the year before COVID. And I kind of give you a rundown of what each of those things cost us. There are like some little bits and pieces inside there that I didn't necessarily talk about. I've got like weight resistance bands and mini bands and things like that cost, $20 to $30 here and there. But the great thing is that I can save a lot of time. If I tried hard enough, I could get from my bed to my basement in 10 minutes. Now, I wake up at about 4:45, 5 a.m. Almost every single morning. And so that happens in 10 minutes, probably 1% of the time. I'd say usually it's about 15 to 20. But still, I know that I can get up and I can go to my basement and get my workout started almost immediately. So my time there is like awesome. I love that. And I don't even have to go outside because I don't know why it's still cold in Maryland in April. From there, so we've got our squat rack there in the back. This squat rack did not come with any plates. It did not come with a bar, but it did come with a cable machine, which was something that I wanted. And then we also bought, which I actually didn't put on here, but we also bought the bench separately as well, which has allowed me to kind of incorporate some different movements as well. So the squat rack now, I want you to know that we paid for this in early 2019. And because of the way our economy is going up right now, and because of how COVID hyper expanded the health and fitness industry, we now see that a lot of these things are more expensive. So just keep that in mind that this is relevant to about 2019. So squat rack was about $500. The barbell and weight plates we got from Dick's. I actually bought a separate barbell, which I eventually ended up selling because we were trying to kind of minimize, and I never used that extra barbell, but that whole set came from Dick's and it was about $300. I also bought adjustable dumbbells, which have been clutch. They've been awesome. which were about $300 on Amazon. And then I recently, I think this past January, got an adjustable kettlebell from Mercari, and that was about $100 as well. It's just something different that I wanted to add into my exercise routine. But getting these things used or just kind of looking for the sales, like this is absolutely feasible. And just so you know, you don't need all of this equipment to have a really great workout. This is my personal preference, as like I did a little bit of CrossFit and I knew that I wanted to get back into the bodybuilding and competitive world. And so for me, this is the equipment I wanted. You can do a lot with far less than this. So do not feel like, oh, this is so much and I don't even know what to do with half of this. Like, one, I could teach you that. And two, you don't need all of this. So this is just what we chose. Next, I really want to talk about food. Actually, sorry, I'm going to just kind of point out here that we've got a couple cardio pieces here too. The treadmill we got for like $70 or $90 off of a marketplace in the place where we work. Actually, so did the bike. The stationary bike came from there too, and I think that was probably around 100, 125 as well. And I just, those have been, I use them almost every single day. So at minimum, those are, two of my two most used. And that's our precious puppy over there who is going to ruin our fire journey soon. But we love him. So talking about foods, buying fresh food. So I tell, when I work with people, I want them to focus on the 80-20 rule. I'm not against snacks. I'm not against chocolates. I'm not against fats. I'm not against carbs. I think you need all of those things. And I think that harmony is key, and understanding that you can have all of those things in moderation is incredibly important. So, thinking about, though, when you walk into a grocery store, in most grocery stores, the first side that you're going to see is the produce side. But ironically, most people leave and they walk in the opposite directions towards the inner aisles. So what I'm trying to encourage people to do is to minimize their time in the inner aisles and focus on that produce section in those outer perimeters where you kind of have your fruits and veggies and your dairies and your meats, even your fish back there, cheeses, things like that. So making sure that we're getting as much minimally processed foods and whole foods as humanly possible. Just kind of a hack that I figured out. I wish I had figured this out several years ago. But keeping your berries in an airtight or glass container, I now put all of my stuff in mason jars, has actually allowed them to last longer. I think since I started doing this about 4 or 5 months ago, I think I've only had come across moldy produce that is well over a week old, maybe 2 or 3 times. And for us, that's a record. We could I stopped shopping at Costco at one point because we just couldn't get through the fruit fast enough before it went bad. And we were wasting a lot of money on fruit that would just go bad within a week. But so on top of that, cleaning your fridge regularly, I'd say for us, that's quarterly, maybe twice a year, with vinegar, white vinegar, 1-to-1, that will also help keep your produce and food as fresh as possible. So next, there's Instacart. Instacart is not necessarily a money saver, but going back to talking about time, it is definitely a time saver. This is something that in our stage of life, we have used a lot lately. So you might look at it and be like, this isn't exactly cheap, but if you're someone who needs to save time, or you just kind of hate the grocery store, or maybe you're just not comfortable being in the grocery store these days, then Instacart is going to be a great option for you. There are stores out there, although there are not many, that don't change their prices. And I know that Sprouts is one of them. So that is one that we frequent. And so I feel good about the quality of food that I'm getting from Sprouts. But I also feel good knowing that I'm paying the same as if I were to drag my kids into the store and have one of them melt down. Aldi, I know Aldi is very popular in the fire world, and we shopped at Aldi for a very long time. I started to find Aldi a little bit frustrating for our personal journey because I had to go shopping somewhere else in order to find my one-off ingredients that Aldi didn't carry. And so eventually I just started shopping there, or stopped shopping there, because I didn't feel like it was worth my time and energy. But they do change their prices, but if you have a limited budget, then they're a really great place to start. And Costco, great for bulk non-perishables. You can definitely get lots of meat there, lots of rice, quinoa, your nuts or nut butters, things like that. And you can definitely get those, and you can save a few bucks overall. And then talking about restaurants, I've had people joke, because they know how serious I am about the things that I put in my body, that I don't go out to eat. And that's actually really not true. I'd say we probably eat out 3 to 4 times a month. On average, and I'm definitely a coffee frequenter. So I definitely go out to eat. And I don't want you to think that I'm any person who doesn't do these things and that this is, a level that you can't obtain, because I absolutely believe you can. And I absolutely believe that, harmony and things in moderation can still be enjoyable. But there are restaurants out there that have healthier options. So a few of our go-tos might be Panera Bread, Subway, Chipotle, Cava, and even sit-down restaurants like Outback, Olive Garden, all have really healthy options. Many of them will have a lower carb or lower calorie menu. And I hate looking at low carb and low cal. It's not something that I'm like particularly looking into, but what I want to know is like, will the food have lots of micronutrients that can serve my body? That's what I want to know. And then also meal prepping. Meal prepping can be incredibly important, but it does come with a little bit of a learning curve and it does take some time. A lot of people, when they get into meal prepping, they get a little bit overwhelmed with the amount of things that they have to do. So I would, if you're someone who hasn't meal prepped and you want to, I would recommend starting small. If you've ever read the book Atomic Habits by James Clear, this is a really fantastic way to kind of understand how your habits and how the importance of starting small can really affect your overall life and the overall changes that you're trying to make in your lifestyle. Also, making sure that you are supplementing with a high quality micronutrient pack. And if you're not getting 3 to 4 servings of wild caught fatty fish every week, then some sort of omega-3 capsule. It is unrealistic. Even the healthiest person in this room will not be getting all of the micronutrients that they need inside their body every day. And that's where a multivitamin or a micronutrient pack comes in. Making sure that we are able to fill those gaps, because those gaps can affect your overall sleep quality. They can affect your energy. They can affect your body's ability to have a proper bowel movement. And your body's, your energy and things like that. So we want to make sure that we are filling in all of those micronutrients that we might not be getting in throughout the day, especially if you're someone who might be eating the same thing every day, or if you just don't know when your next meal is going to be because you're just so busy and like work has got you going. These things are going to kind of really help your body do its thing properly. And in consuming as many plant-based foods as possible. I'm not vegan. I'm not vegetarian. I have tried vegan for about 3 or 4 months. I didn't stick with it because I really like eggs. But I've also come to understand the value in having good quality grass-fed meat in my diet every day. And so I want to make sure that I am getting lots of fruits and veggies in, not to omit those fruits either, because I've had people come to me and say, like, I don't eat fruits because it's too much sugar. Fruits come with a lot of micronutrients. And yes, they are made up of glucose, which is sugar, but they're actually really good for your body. So I never want to encourage someone to omit a food group or a macronutrient. For most people, unless you have a medical condition, that is just simply not necessary. Understanding that you need to consume 100 to 128 ounces of water per day. If you're someone who does this already, then you're like, cool, I got that. But if you're someone who doesn't do that, you're thinking, oh my gosh, that's so many trips to the bathroom. And I'm here to say, yes, your body is supposed to pee all day. You're supposed to get rid of everything that your body doesn't need. You are supposed to get all those toxins out. If you're anyone who's ever done yoga, they're like, just get rid of all the toxins. Peeing also does that for your body. So we want to make sure that our body is able to get rid of that stuff, but also able to digest and assimilate, which means to like spread out and put your food to work inside your body. And so if your body's not able to do that because you're not getting enough water, then you're going to start feeling groggy, you're going to start feeling down, you're just not going to have the energy that you want. Not to mention, you might experience dry skin, dry eyes. And so water is incredibly important and often something that people pass up and don't think about. And then you have sleep. Sleep, the one that we all give up because it's the easiest to give up, because if we only give up 20 minutes, we're not going to feel any different the next day. And the truth is, maybe you won't the next day, but in 2 days you might, in 3 days you might, especially if you continue to keep that habit up. So it definitely depends from person to person, but getting about 7 to 9 hours of sleep at night is ideal. This is when your body is actually going to work to rebuild muscle, and it's actually going to rest your respiratory and cardiovascular systems. That's incredibly important because you've been going. Even though you're sitting here right now, your body is working and you are engaging your brain, and eventually those things need to rest. And we try to think of it as like, I need to rest. And that's true, you do, because your body functions. But also so does your brain, your heart, your lungs, your digestive system, your hormones. And that's a really important one, is that during that time, your hormones rebalance. So if you're only getting 5 to 6 hours of sleep, your hormones aren't able to actually fully rebalance themselves. And so then we see hormones like ghrelin, which is our hunger hormone, which tells us, for some reason, I'm really hungry. Well, are you actually hungry, or do you just feel hungry because you're actually extraordinarily tired, and so you're grabbing the next snacky thing in the pantry? And so another thing that I do, I've done this for about 4 or 5 years, is tracking my food. You don't know what you don't measure. And for some people, this is not a lifestyle that they want to take on. Perhaps they've had a bad experience with food in the past, and I completely understand that. And that's not a place that I question. However, I do think that for some people, it can be extraordinarily useful. If you don't know what you're putting into your body, then you can't really sit and target what you need to work on or what you want to fix in order to get to where you want to be. And again, our overall goal here is to feel good when we get to retirement so that we can enjoy it, so that we can be with those that we love, and so that we can do the things that we want to do. So knowing how much and what kinds of foods you're eating can be life-changing. There is a huge difference. You might look at a quarter pounder on the menu and think like, well, it's beef. Yes, but at the foundation of what a quarter pounder and the meat, the kind of meat that is put into the quarter pounder, and the cow that was fed, and the kind of living environments that the cow is, and the kind of meat that is then pulled from that cow versus a cow who is pasture raised on organic food, soy-free, and ate grass all of its life and lived in a pasture, those meats are incredibly different. And so that's not a place I'm going to go today, but you're welcome to Google that, or you can absolutely, shoot me a message or find me on social media after this, and I'll absolutely have that conversation with you. But the reality is no. Beef is not beef, protein is not protein, carbs are not carbs. Knowing the quality of your food is incredibly important. So, what should you be eating? So, I don't do fad diets. I've been there, I've done that. I remember when I was a teenager, I wanted to be skinny and, look the look that everybody in the 90s wanted to look. And so I had Slim Fast bars in my room. That was how I thought if I just didn't eat all day and I just ate a couple Slim Fast bars, I'd be great. And I would look exactly how I wanted to. And then when I got to my 20s, I did hot yoga for years. And I was like, man, why is this not working? I'm sweating my butt off and I still don't look any different. Why? And that's because I was eating garbage. And not just, running through the drive-through, but I just wasn't eating good quality foods either. And so that was something that I actually came to learn in the last year or so. But knowing that, I'm not going to do keto. I'm not going to do Atkins. I'm not going to do low carb. I don't do low calorie. I eat anywhere from 2,000 to 2,500 calories every single day. And that just depends on where I'm at in my life. I am a mom who is nursing a baby. And so that's very relevant. And just understanding that what my body needs right now and the kind of energy that I uptake every single day is very relevant. And I eat a lot of protein. I eat a lot of carbs. And I eat a lot of fats. Those are all very important because they provide me energy. The kind of food that you put into your body will determine what kind of energy you're going to have at the end of the day. Then there's cognitive function, making sure that you can think, that you can remember, that you feel good, that you can have a conversation without skipping a beat. Your immune support. We've seen this in the last 2 years where people with low immune systems really got the downside of COVID. And that's a really tough thing to see. Now, I'm not saying that a healthy diet would have fixed all that. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not here to have that conversation or have that argument. However, it can absolutely be very supportive, and it can definitely help a person get through just the common cold much more easily. And then we see protein. A lot of people, there's a lot of misnomers, in my personal opinion, around protein. And it's, protein has been looked at since the 80s as protein is protein, bro. And the truth is that protein is not just protein. How protein is made, as I kind of just described with the cow example earlier, is incredibly important. It is used for foundational cellular functions like your hair, skin, and nails. Also your eye health, your joint health, your DNA, your hormone rebalancing, etc. But what we see from protein is because it is so foundational, we actually lack a lot of that in our American diet. And so we're not able to have this basic foundational health like we need. We also know that protein is actually extraordinarily important for muscle maintenance or muscle holding on to as much muscle mass as possible. What we know about muscle mass is that muscle actively burns calories. So if you're someone who is trying to lose weight, for example, you want to make sure that you have as much lean muscle mass on your body as possible. Now, no matter how you feel about your body right now, there is some kind of muscle on your body. You have muscle. Everyone has it inherently. We need muscle. We need fat to survive. Our organs need that. And so, when we're thinking about how we want to lose fat or, lose weight in general, or see the number on the scale down, or even be able to fit in a pair of jeans better, we have to think about how muscle affects all of that. And so we want to make sure that we do have muscle on our body, because muscle is going to burn more calories than fat. It's also going to help to protect all of those ligaments, joints, tendons, etc. So my professional opinion is to leave your fad diets at the door. They don't have a place in today's society. I hate them. And unless you have a medical condition for wanting to undertake, low carb or low fat or high carb or whatever the case is, they almost just don't have a benefit, and they're not sustainable. And what we want to make sure is that we're aiming for sustainability, something that we can do not just, again, for 30 days, but for 3 years, for 6 years, for 9 years, for the rest of your life. And so I try to make that realistic for the people I work with. So in talking about protein, so when we're looking at protein, we're looking, just here's some examples: eggs, egg whites, chicken, turkey, beef, tuna, fish, ham, and then you also have protein powders. Protein powders, I think, are really important here. If you've ever taken one in the past, maybe you've had a good experience with it, maybe you haven't. Understanding how that protein powder was made is incredibly important. A lot of what we see on the store shelves these days is processed at an incredibly high temperature. And when you process something at a high temperature, think of it like this. If you were to buy 2 chicken breasts at the store, you take them home, you season them up, and you're excited to have them. You take one out and you put it on your grill at 800 degrees. Now, if you can get your grill to 800, that's awesome. That chicken breast is going to be done in like 10 minutes. So you've saved your time. Great. Now you take chicken breast B and you go and you put it in the crock pot and you put it on there for 4 to 6 hours and you let it cook all day long. You come home and you're looking at these two, the one that you grilled at 800 degrees, which is probably black and burnt and char grilled by now, and you're juicy, moist, delicious, falling apart as you stick your fork into it, chicken breast from your crock pot. Which one do you want to eat? I'll answer for you. It's probably going to be the crock pot. And protein powders are made very similarly. When protein powders are processed, when they process the whey at a high temperature, it burns out what's called the bioavailability of the protein. It denatures it, which means that our bodies can't break it down and digest it. And that's why you might experience things like bubble guts, running to the bathroom, gassiness, bloatedness, because again, that processing is really, really important. So when you're looking for a protein powder, aim for something, they actually have to say it on the label, that is low temperature processed. So that's really important. And then next we've got carbs. Looking at healthy carbs, we're looking at oats, sweet potatoes, quinoa, brown rice. I usually do frozen broccoli and green beans. If you have time to cut fresh, that's awesome. I'm so happy for you. Asparagus, bell peppers, tomatoes, you guys can read the list. But these are some really, just a few really great healthy carbs to kind of aim for when I talked about shopping in those outer perimeters. I aim to make my life as convenient and simple as possible. So if you're someone who's got a really busy life and you're like, Gina, I just don't know how you want me to do this, like hit me up on the side. I can definitely help you and give you some tips. It's not easy, but what I can tell you, as I said earlier, is that the ROI is insurmountable. It's amazing. And then healthy fats, again, nuts. So any of your almonds, peanuts, cashews, all of your seeds, chia, hemp, flax, avocados, olive oil, cheese, and butter. Ideally grass-fed butter if you can, organic grass-fed butter and organic cheese as well. And talking about micronutrients, so I've talked about this a little bit, but vitamins and minerals can be consumed through our nutrition to help support the thousands of functions that happen within the human body every day. So we don't see all these things, but even like simple movement, like me here talking with my hands, or you thinking in your brain right now, like, this girl's crazy, or like, does she have a point? Those are all functions that are actually happening inside your body right now. And we couldn't do those functions without the micronutrients that we get from our food. And then 3 things that micronutrients help with. They help with absorbing the nutrients so that we can feel and perform at our best. They help support our immune system, like I mentioned earlier, so that our body can effectively fight off infections. We're not going to be immune to infections or viruses or bacteria. Those things are still going to happen. That's natural life. But we can help to fight them off more effectively and optimally so that we are out of the game for lesser time. And then looking at our metabolism, this is kind of a word that, is thrown about, but a lot of people don't understand what a metabolism is. And a metabolism is your body's ability to burn fat and preserve and build muscle as well. And looking at how it breaks down your food and uses that food to, with your digestive processes, with your neurological processes, psychological processes, emotional, mental health, all of those things are really incorporated. And so making sure, that micronutrients are a lot more important than people give them credit for. So how did I arrive to this point? I told you guys just briefly at the beginning that this journey kind of started when I'm 25. To give you some context, I'm 33 now, I'll be 34 in a couple weeks. And that was when I realized that I was just not like beer and vodka and macaroni and cheese and hot dogs were not doing it for me. I love pizza, but at the end of the day, I needed to figure out a better way to make pizza so that I could still enjoy it without wrecking my body. I do come from some genetic and some diet and lifestyle related diseases. There's lots of cancer in my family. Again, some of those are lifestyle related, so I understand that. But this has also given me a perspective to realize that I don't want to be in those shoes someday. My parents had me at a very late age in life, and by then they were kind of done, parenting, and I was the youngest of 7 as well. I am the youngest of 7. So they have not died. And so, one thing I wanted to know that about myself, was that I can't control everything, but what I can control, I wanted to try to control. And so I know that I can control what I put into my body. And I knew that would determine what kind of life and memories I could make with my kids. And so knowing that I really didn't get that as a child as much as I would have liked to looking back, I want to be able to give that to my kids. And so it's important to me to make sure that I'm active and that I'm eating really well. I've done the fad diets like I've kind of alluded to. I've worked with ill-equipped trainers, people who gave me their meal plan that their trainer gave them. If someone's doing that to you, for the record, that's not okay. Health and fitness and lifestyle is all very individual, and it should be treated that way. There is no one size fits all. Please, if you have or are working with someone who is like, here, I'm just going to give you this meal plan and go follow it for, until you get the results you want. If that's not adjusted to you, and if you don't have someone who's checking in with you on a weekly basis, then you are really wasting your money. And I want to tell you that, not to shame you or make you feel guilty about that, but to inform you that you deserve better, and that your health and your future is very important. I've also seen my friends have their metabolisms destroyed due to irresponsible coaching. Again, low calorie, if you're eating, I'd say for most people in here, as I'm doing a very quick scan, 12 to 1,300 calories is probably not suitable for most of you. So telling someone or hearing that you need to be eating 1,200 calories a day could really wreck your metabolism. And that is just not realistic for most people. I understand, sizes and genders and age have a lot to do with how much a person needs to eat every day, but for most people, that's not going to work out. So why do I think most people struggle to keep or lose off weight? I get this a lot. And this is because people look at me and they're like, oh, Gina, you're just so motivated. You're so dedicated. Like you were in the military, you know what you're doing. And listen, I remember like one of the first times I sat down, I was very fresh to the military. I sat down in the gym. And if you've ever been to one of those like older school gyms, they have the big posters and it's like the like muscular skeleton picture of the person who's like doing a bicep curl. And then they show you like what their hamstrings and their quadriceps look like. And you're like, they're telling you all of these exercises that you need to do. And you're like, I have no idea what to do. And so I'm sitting here staring at these posters wondering like, okay, if I just do some of these exercises on these posters, like I'll be good, right? And so like I have absolutely started at the beginning. I didn't know all of this stuff. I have studied this stuff on and off. I went through, rigorous training and just taking my own personal time to learn what was best. And, having just experience of being not coached well by other coaches has helped as well. So I don't think it's that people don't have dedication or motivation or will. You are motivated every single morning to get up and brush your teeth. Right? I hope so. And ideally you have the willpower to tie your shoes because if you don't, you're going to trip and that's going to hurt. And I don't want that for you. So I believe that for the right things and for the things that we have made systems and habits for, we absolutely have the motivation and dedication and will. Where it comes to health and fitness is that the education around building new habits and patience. If we feel that we are an unhealthy person and we want to make a change about that, you look at the bigger picture and I didn't get here in 30 days. So you're not going to get out of it in 30 days. And that's the really hard thing because in our society today, we want it to be quick. We want it to be done. We want to feel healthy and lose 20 pounds in 2 months and then just be back at it and feel good about our summer body. That's not always how it works. For some people, it might. And that's really where genetics comes in and we don't have any control over that. But what we can do is we can start to build new habits, and we can start to work on our patience around that. And that's the hard part, because we don't want to do those things. Those things are hard. They take time. And so when I work with people and they're only losing 1 to 2 pounds a week, which, mind you, is a healthy, very healthy point to be losing weight per week, they start to feel frustrated, like, this is not enough. This is not enough, because we've always been taught to see more, more, more. You're not doing enough. You're not running your mile fast enough. You're not hitting the gym hard enough. And those things, listen, I will be the first to say that, yes, workouts are very important. And I don't think that everybody needs to be going to do a CrossFit workout. I think that you can do really well and keep a healthy body by going out for a morning walk for 30 to 45 minutes every day. But what we don't understand, and because this is a generation, there are several generations in this room, but the last 40 to 50 decades in which most of us have grown up or at least lived through have been around teaching us, the value of fast food, the value of getting things done quickly, the value of, just, go through and grab this food real quick, grab these snack packs, and they're low calorie, they're 0 sugar. And we don't know what else is in those that is actually slowing down our body. It's messing up our hormones. And that has an overall effect on our energy and, how we feel about life and how our bodies are feeling and how we're able to cognitively function. And so building new habits, talking about, setting new systems, when you want to get to the gym every morning at 6 o'clock, do you have your gym clothes set out? Is your water bottle filled up? When you want to meal prep, are you going if you want to meal prep on Sunday afternoon at 2 p.m., did you go to the grocery store to get everything that you needed Sunday morning or Saturday night? Or say you know that you get off on the weekends and the weekends get the best of you, but you want to meal prep so that you can just have stuff to grab and go so you can go out and enjoy your weekend with your family. So this is an opportunity to look at Wednesday and Thursday and say, okay, I know that the weekends are really hard for me. So now I need to start thinking on Wednesday and Thursday about going grocery shopping and taking an hour or two on Thursday night or Friday night to prep for Saturday and Sunday so that I have the healthy snacks that I want that are going to really keep me going. And then also the lack of education and on the value of nutrition. We talk, again, you hear a lot about if you just have the right workout, you're going to be fine. If you just go harder, if you just run faster, if you just sweat more, you're going to be fine. But the truth is that nutrition is 80% of the battle. 80% of the battle. That's a huge number because we've been conditioned and taught the last several decades that it's all about the workout. It's all about the type of exercise that you're doing. And then talking about proper accountability, making sure this is a little bit of a new area that I've kind of been working at with my clients because I work virtually online with everybody. I've had my LLC since about 2018 and I've been training since about 2015. And so I can't, I work with people all over the country and even all over the world. So I can't go to where they are and be like, you should have grabbed those carrots instead. That doesn't work. And I don't train like that either, just to be clear. But what I can do is I can teach them to keep themselves accountable. And so, I work with people. Sometimes I'm a therapist for people. Sometimes I'm an educator for people. It really just depends because our whole life can have an overall effect on how we feel and our overall nutrition. And then there's this mindset that I can't do it. I can't do it. And so that's a really hard place because if you've been telling yourselves or someone in your life has been telling you all your life that you can't do something, you're going to feel that way. And that's not an easy place to get out of. Mental and emotional health is absolutely part of this entire holistic process. And so trying to turn that around is really difficult, but it is possible. And it's a journey. And sometimes that journey can take 2, 3, 5, 10 years. But that's what I try to obtain for the people that I work with. They want to change their lives, not just change themselves for their summer body. So that mindset is very important. So I will open up for questions, but I did want to talk about something that I didn't actually have in the slides. And so that was a little bit on the the financial part of what we do in our home. I wanted to be open and let you guys know and to kind of talk about our personal budget here. I told you at the beginning that we save about 30 to 40% of our income every month. And that goes to a variety of different things. Like I told you, we're trying to save for an RV trip next year. We save so that we can do a little bit of traveling here and there. I don't even know what else we save for. College, we save for college. We save, because we know that our cars are going to break down. We know our dog is sick right now, so we save for pet expenses, things like that. So it's kind of all over the spectrum. And then we have like our VTSAX as well. We no longer can give to our TSPs because we're out, but those are all very relevant. And so I wanted to talk about our grocery budget, which when we started when we got married in 2014, and I think we really started paying everything off in like March or April of 2015. And our budget was much lower then. And so we spent probably around $400 to $500 a month. We lived in Southern California. So for Southern California, 2 people, that was pretty good. As we got older, as I started to learn more about the value of food and understanding, how conventional food is grown and how organic food is grown, that has grown a little bit over the years. We also had a son. And so eventually he started eating solids too. So we're looking at like 2.5-ish people. And so our budget increased to, $700 or $800. And then we moved here. Cost of living didn't change a lot, but this is definitely a high cost of living area. We've also seen food really go up in the last, 4 or 6 months. So things have gotten more expensive. I have also started choosing to buy more organic foods, buy more grass-fed foods, and buy more locally so that I can support our local farmers and our local farmers markets. So I try to, I actually wanted to go to a farmers market this morning that was in Colombia, but I'm here instead. And so, those are kind of things that I'm trying to incorporate more into our life, but it also gives me an opportunity to teach my kids about the value of food and nutrition as well. And so right now we spend probably anywhere from $1,000 to $1,200 a month on our grocery budget. I know, I saw your eyes. Yes, and I know that's a lot, and it's not for everybody, and I understand and respect that, but I wanted to share that so that you guys have an understanding of where I'm coming from. But I also shared that that's not where we started. And where we started was, it's 2022, and we got married in 2014, so 8 years ago. And that has come a long way. And that might never be in your future, and that's okay. I would rather a person be getting in healthy whole foods from a conventional farmer than going through a drive-through and just picking up a quarter pounder every single day with a couple tomatoes and iceberg lettuce thrown on top of it. This is the avenue that we've chosen that is best for us, mostly because I do the grocery shopping and I do all of the research behind this. But thankfully, I have my husband's support. But I understand that that's not feasible for everyone, and that sometimes it does take time to get there. And maybe you're someone who looks at specifically the Dirty Dozen, which is a list that you can Google, and that is just very simply, that is just very simply like the top 10 or 12 fruits and vegetables that tend to be higher in pesticides and higher in chemicals from conventional farmers. And so that's a really great place to start. And that's kind of where I started several years ago as well, just looking at those particular foods as well. I have dabbled with HelloFresh. I have dabbled with lots of other subscription boxes as well, which were okay. But we kind of actually, when Alex asked me to do this presentation was when I really started to look at what we were spending. And so we started to look at one of our subscription boxes and kind of realized that it maybe wasn't serving us how I thought it was. And so, we eradicated that one and I started to go back to shopping. I did a lot of Instacart. So that means that I usually tip my Instacart drivers. So that can be counted into that as well. And again, when I'm not shopping from Sprouts and I'm shopping maybe from Costco, there is an influx in price there. So all of those things can kind of be accounted for as well. If you're someone who is able to get to the grocery store without 2 children melting down and your anxiety going into high gear, then that's awesome. You'll probably save a little bit more money. But there are times in my life when I choose convenience over my kids screaming in public. And that's, again, just my personal preference. So I'm totally open for conversation or questions. These are ways that you can get a hold of me as well if you want to take a picture or hit me up on the side. I actually don't care if you call me. I prefer you text me, but I totally don't mind. So that's why I put it on there, so you're more than welcome to. And that's really all I have for today. And thank you very much for having me, and have a great Saturday.
Speaking of kids, I'm Vince, by the way. So I have teenage boys who are like football players, right? And they kind of are naturally skinny like me, but they want to be bigger and bulkier. And they've been doing like the protein powder and stuff.
Yeah.
And you mentioned, you talked a little bit about that too.
Yeah.
Any other thing they could supplement with that, or
Whole Foods.
Whole Foods.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. Ideally. So one thing I didn't really talk about was if you are someone who prefers to take supplements. Supplements are not necessary, but they're very helpful, very convenient, especially if you're someone who's trying to take in extra calories because you do want to bulk. Protein powder can be very helpful because you don't have to figure out how to stuff down more protein into your body. But making sure when you are in a higher protein diet, making sure that you're having foods and digestive enzymes, those are tropical fruits. That helps to break down the protein in your body so that you don't have that full feeling. But when you're buying a protein powder, you want to buy a protein powder that is low temperature processed. And that means that it's processed, it's going to be processed at a lower temperature, although it still has to be processed under heat at a lower temperature so that it's sustaining more of the bioavailability of the actual, the protein powder. Now, what you will see from protein powders that fall into that category is that they are more expensive. You are getting what you pay for. Just like if you were to go to Costco and if you were to look at their regular beef, their conventional beef, and you were to look at their organic grass-fed beef, there will be a difference because there is a very vast difference in the amount of work and resources that were put into raising those two animals. And so that's why the price difference is very different. But as far as protein goes, eggs, egg whites, chicken, turkey, fish, tuna, tuna's a fish, shrimp, pretty much any seafood is going to be very high in protein, ham as well, meat, lots of meat, but making sure also that they're getting in, the carbs and fats will make a very big difference. When you're someone who's trying to bulk, you do have to make sure that you are in a calorie surplus. So if you don't know where that is, that's where I talked about, you don't know what you don't measure. So if a person doesn't know where they are, then they kind of have to do a little bit of science. And it's like tracking your food for a couple months and understanding like, okay, I'm just going to throw out a ballpark number. I'm at 2,000 calories and nothing is happening to my weight and my body looks the same. Okay, that's a maintenance state for you. Now I'm at 1,800 and I realize, okay, I'm losing a half a pound a week. So that means you are in a calorie deficit. Then you try increasing it to 2,200 and you realize, oh, okay, I'm putting on a half a pound a week. Now I'm in a calorie surplus. So you don't know what you don't measure. So depending on where a person wants to go, how many calories they're taking in becomes relevant. Anyone else?
What about avoiding processed vegetable oils?
Yeah, great question. So I briefly went over fats. And so my go-to fat oils are definitely going to be olive and avocado. I'm actually kind of in the middle of learning about this right now, so I don't have a lot, but what I do know is that I would definitely avoid anything like canola. Just honestly, your basic vegetable oils just are not processed well. They're processed at very high heats. And what we do know is that when things are processed at very high heats, it tends to literally burn out the micronutrients into them. And it actually tends to take away like some of their positive microbial properties. And so we want to make sure, in order for a food to really benefit our body as much as possible, most of us are not going to have, we're not going to be making oil in our own homes, and that's okay. I don't expect you to. But we want to make sure that we're trying to stick with as pure virgin oils as possible. And I would definitely stick to olive and avocado.
Also, to mention, most restaurants, even expensive ones, and basically packaged foods all have vegetable oils.
Yeah, absolutely. That's extraordinarily relevant. And so that's why I talk about moderation. I'm not here to tell you that you can't go out to eat or that you shouldn't enjoy a restaurant. But it is absolutely worth keeping in mind that when you are putting those foods into your body, that it is not as clean as something that you might buy off of a grocery store shelf and oil and season yourself from ingredients that you know that you picked out from your grocery store shelves. So thank you for bringing that up. Well, thank you very much. If you have any questions, or if you're like, hey, I just don't want to ask my question in front of the group, I'll be here for a while. So you're more than welcome to ask me.
Let's give her a round of applause, all right? I don't know if you checked the news the past week, but there's great history making in the Supreme Court. So it's more diverse than ever. First time there's no white male majority, for those who don't know. So this is what I want to try to drive at in this group. So you were joking a little bit that I'm a white female, how do I add diversity? And when I was finding a personal trainer, and she's my personal trainer, so I have a friend who's a bulking up, and he's like, you need to find a male as a personal trainer, because if you need to get to the shape that you need to get to, you cannot use a female. You know what I did, Gina? That picture that you had it on the second page, and I told you you need to include that picture. Yeah. I sent it to him. And then we were texting, so we're not like, can't see his reaction, but I can see his reaction of like, and then he would go back to you, and he came back to me like, okay, I know why you choose Gina, and you're in a good place. There's different definition of diversity, and truthfully, there's a lot to be said when you said, well, a white female, like, is it really making this group diverse? And truthfully, in a Phi community at this point so far in outside Baltimore and Baltimore County, yeah. That means that I have a lot more work to do. And that also means that for those who have an idea, who wants to present on something, then you feel like, oh, is it really going to be accepted in this community, or is it going to be, oh, what would happen to it? Just come on up. Tell me if you don't want to film, that's okay. No filming. We just, I'm always open for new suggestions and feedbacks. With that said, I just want to close it out for today, and I hope we can go grab some lunch, and then that's where real connection happens over food. Hopefully healthy, right? All right, thank you very much.